Many musicians learn to name intervals, but naming isn't the same as hearing. Today, we're not going to memorize anything. We're not going to use songs, and we're not going to count. We're going to see whether your ear can feel the difference between sounds instantly. If you're willing to try this, close your eyes when I ask you to and just notice. That's all. Close your eyes for just a moment. Listen. What does that feel like? Don't label it. What does it feel like? Where do you feel it in your body? Where do you feel it in your mind? Does it create tension? Does it remind you of something? Anything that comes to mind is perfectly fine. We're not going to label it, just notice. Different? Did you notice the difference between the two? Two very different reactions. Now the same thing you did with that first interval. You listened, you tried to feel somewhere in your body where maybe you heard it. And then you felt it. You didn't label it. Do the same thing with this interval. Feel it, don't label it. I'm going to alternate between the two now. Just notice the shift in your body, in your mind, in your thoughts, in your mood. Anything that changes about your awareness. Does the room change? Does it feel more enclosed? Does it feel more open? Whatever you feel, notice. Don't label. Don't try and hold on to it because it can change the next time I play one of these intervals. Just listen and experience. Now, I'm going to play one of the two intervals. Just pay attention, just listen. Did you notice how a reaction to it, some physical response, some mental response, some emotion, something outside of the interval came before the thought? That's that second interval I heard. Or if you're labeling as a perfect fifth, you know it's a perfect fifth. You know, whatever you're using to label it, the label's pretty natural. It will come automatically. But do you notice the thing that comes before it? An instant reaction, a visceral reaction to what I just played. Listen again, different interval. Did you feel so subtle? Immediately, before a thought formed, it was just instant. It has a reaction in your body. Now, these reactions will change. This is not necessarily how you identify intervals, but this is the first step towards instantly recognizing intervals. It's instant. Now, the best way to practice this is to get into a meditative state, reach out with your eyes closed, and just play any two notes on the piano. You don't identify them, you pay attention to the emotional reaction. Another one. There's always an emotional reaction at the start. Let's do a few. This difference is interval quality. Here, here. Now let me show you something. This is a minor second. So is this. Do they have a different reaction? They're the same interval. For me, the second one, and I'm not playing it with a greater attack, it's harsher than this. This is softer. And this is where it gets difficult. This is why emotion alone can't determine interval quality. You have to go deeper. You have to say, what is it about those two intervals, which are both minor seconds, that are the same? And so now we've established, maybe you're not hearing it, that's fine, but E and F has one kind of minor second quality. B flat and B has another. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to develop this receptiveness to the different qualities and emotional states that particular intervals will actually create for you. So we want to try and imprint some of this. We're going to do this again, okay? You know what to do. I want you to focus on the reaction that you have. One of these feels tense, one feels open. That moment right at the beginning where you feel that tension, where you feel that emotion, that physical response, something in your body that's not part of the interval, the reaction to it. That's what we want to hold on to. That 1, 10, 50 millisecond response that you have that quickly moves over into analysis that says that's a minor second. It's the part that comes before that we want to start to emphasize. We want to start to emphasize the feelings before the labelings. Because here's a trick. You can identify intervals by labels, and that's not going to work. That's not going to help you identify melodies. You're not going to be able to sit here and say, that was a major second followed by a perfect fourth, followed by a minor third. Your brain will short circuit. It's too much information. It's too much labeling. It's too precise. We're not computers. But what you can do, your superpower, is that evokes a reaction, and I recognize it. I've trained it at different pitch levels, so I've learned how this tension and this tension sound different, but I've learned what makes them the same. There's something in here that you have to find that makes this the same as this, and this, and this, and this. They're all the same, yet different. And that's what makes ear training difficult, is that we actually have to just sit, we have to relax, and we can't force the ear. So when I do the flawless course, this is what we do. So, 2 intervals. How does it change? Catch that 50-second response, millisecond. And then it's gone. It's a micro feeling, okay? It happens so quickly. You already know which is which automatically. Now, I'm only doing 2 intervals and they sound very different, but think about that for a moment. You know, without a doubt, these are 2 different intervals. And if I asked you to identify them once I told you the label, you wouldn't even have to think about it. You'd be minor second, perfect fifth. But if I ask you to identify it by sensation, that actually takes a brief moment longer because you have to figure out what the sensation is. But once you've locked in the sensation, then it gets easier. So knowing which one is which, we call this confidence transfer. You know you can tell the difference. So now you have confidence. If you can hear the difference between this and this, your training is just a matter of time. It's just a matter of logged hours. So we can also talk about bright versus dark. It's not necessarily a new contrast, but listen to this. I'll start on the E still. How you listen, emotion first, then label if you can, but we don't even need to label. We just want to listen and feel the emotion. Do you feel a slight lift? Do you feel how this one just carries a weight somehow? One leans upward. One is coming down. Sitting up, sitting back. So even if you don't have words for it, you feel the tilt. You feel this? It's like pulling you almost. And this is letting you go a little bit. You're losing something. You're ready to go. You want to move. Maybe a little bit sad. You want to stay still. So keep your eyes closed. Listen to these intervals. Notice how quickly your body differentiates. Even if you can't name them yet, there's no confusion in your nervous system. The confusion exists only in language. But you know that's one interval. That's another. The moment you label them, though, that's where the confusion starts to set in. So, traditional ear training, we do start with labeling. But we also have to be aware of a characteristic sound. Not "Here Comes the Bride," not "When the Saints Come Marching In," not Star Wars. A characteristic sound. And sometimes, as with myself, there are certain sounds that are so deeply embedded in your psyche, they come from a much younger period of your time, and it's impossible to separate. They're embedded. Like the descending major third for me is a grandfather clock. Bum, bum. I can't forget that. Bum, 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 bum. You know, I can't get that out of my head. I hear the first two notes as a descending major third. And the same thing with the ascending major six. I hear the MBC thing, you know, which G, E, C. I hope we don't get flagged for copyright here. But that G, E, C is actually a major six followed by a major third. And it's G, E company, which used to own NBC. That's the story I've been told anyway. So someone go research that and let me know if it's true. All right. So I still think it's interesting because it helps you kind of remember the major six. But there is no confusion that they're different. There's no part of you that says they're the same. You don't hear this and say they're the same. But when I suddenly do an ear training drill, you get them confused. You're toggling too much information. You need to toggle less information. And this is why we need to start to train the emotional response to what you're hearing. So let's try something else. How about this one? Feel that stretch. Feel that sense of completion. Now, right now, we are training tension and resolution. We're training a tonal systems idea of tension and resolution. And there are other systems out there that don't necessarily use tension and resolution in the same way that a tonal system does. But when we create that dissonance, it feels like it wants to resolve to a consonance. And it wants to go to the nearest one. This is a sense of completion. This is an early way to start to think about how we hear music and how we hear intervals by sensation, by feeling rather than labeling. But it's not hearing the interval yet. It's hearing how that interval is going to function. So if I play a perfect fifth, it feels stable. If I play a perfect fourth, maybe you hear it wanting to go up. If I play a major seventh, we hear it wanting to resolve because we've been taught that's how it resolves. But we want to get closer to the sound, the emotional state, the part in your body where you feel it. You want to hear this pull and also feel the release. Feel them together, but feel them separately too. The octave. How does that respond in your body? Feel free to let me know. I read everything. Compare it to this. That pull and release is just so unmistakable. So I'm going to go ahead and replay the very first sound. Does it feel clear at all? Even a little bit clearer? Even slightly, like you become just a little bit more familiar after this short session. Is there something different about it? If you heard something, the sound didn't change. Your perception did. After hearing and comparing all these other intervals, and if you followed along and you tried to do this emotional state, you tried to feel it physically, all that activity took your brain out of the equation as much as we could in a short session like this. And now when I play it, you're just left with a response. That's the idea. So let's try something. I'm going to play a bunch of intervals. Just listen to them and notice that, yeah, you can tell the difference. You know when I switch intervals. This is so simple. This is so obvious. But this is ear training at its finest. This is what we strive for, to be able to just know and that's what we want. We want you to know 1, 2, and 3 intervals. They're all different. Each one triggered something different in you. And that is the first step. Now, the problem with this is that your emotions, your responses can change. Here's a perfect fifth. What if I do this? Can you forget about what's happening here in the bass and isolate the top 2 tones and hear those as a perfect fifth, as a quality that you learn to recognize as a perfect fifth? It still has the same amount of tension, the same amount of brightness, and the same amount of openness. And this isn't guessing. This is recognition, but it's recognition without thinking. And that is what I'm trying to teach you today. It's a very important thing. This is how professionals actually hear. Many of you are professionals. You told me about your life experiences. You've done so much in your life. And you know that when you're playing, most likely you're not thinking minor second, but you're feeling it. You're feeling an emotional response to that minor second. You know when it hits in the music. You can just feel it because you've trained yourself. And in the moment, you're more focused on playing your instrument than actually trying to identify what you're hearing. And that's when ear training tends to relax just enough for you to be able to use it very internally. So here's what just happened. What we did was we increased contrast. And the brain learns through contrast. Not too much, just enough. And when sounds are compared directly, your auditory system, it sharpens. That sharpening feels like clarity. And that's why this works. So I want you to remember this. You didn't get smarter. If this worked for you, you became a little bit more sensitive. Most musicians are taught to train intellectually. Very few train the perception itself. You just did. So look, if this shifted something for you, even slightly, imagine strengthening that sensitivity every single week. Just guided listening that strengthens how you hear. No rush, no push. And that is what I'm doing here. Intervals are not distances. They're sensations. And your ear is far more capable than you've been led to believe. So if you felt something shifted, you hear these a little bit more clearly, then this type of training can work for you. I'm not saying it'll work for everybody, but you now know it's possible.